Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Wookert Jr., rocking live from sunny South Florida. The show is also produced in sunny South Florida. Somehow, every producer we're able to find is in close proximity to me. It's a delight. It's funny because it's super sunny out today, but we've had about a 40-degree shift in the temp. It was 90 degrees, like too hot yesterday, and now it's a little chilly. So we're doing the first rule of broadcasting: don't talk about the weather. Everybody, so if you could like, subscribe, hit the alert bell, all that jazz. We are going to be talking about not Champions TCG anymore. They are now called Otherworldly. So if you've been following the TCG, the gaming foray into the blockchain space, you would have remembered them as Coom Battles, Champions of Otherworldly Magic. They made the change to Champions, I think, for a little bit of extra professionalization. The game is now called Otherworldly, and they are rocking seriously, doing a lot of really cool stuff across the space. Frankly, one of the key things in the BSV ecosystem that shows me that, hey, we have some real entrepreneurship here. It's not just people saying, hey, man, we're going to do a thing someday, buy my coin, make me rich. These people are actually building. They're actually playing. They are developing a real fundamental ecosystem in the space using the technology, which is the thing I keep telling everybody they need to do. And, some people listen, most people don't. So anyways, if you're here watching, I appreciate you. We will be taking questions live from the troll box with our guest, who is one Tom Ross. You may not recall him from the blockchain space because he's not really a blockchain guy. He is, however, a legendary gamer, author, educator, competitor. One of the guys you might know for, frankly, inventing various strategies in the TCG universe, primarily known for his Magic the Gathering work, but he's an expert across the whole concept here in the industry. And has come into a critical role over at Otherworldly, helping design whole game packs and really put work into making the game juicier, funner, and more competitive by playing the game. I think a lot of people try to get into a thing in the blockchain space and say, hey, I'm gonna change the world, but it's all really just a ploy to pump a coin. And that has always infuriated me. So what the Otherworldly people have done is wisely bring in an expert, somebody who has a real love for not just the game, but the entire genre of games to really make a fantastic product. So we'll be talking to Tom, and it's going to be really exciting. So please don't be shy. Bring your questions. I got a whole a manifest of questions from Mr. Manifestable himself, Brett Banffy, who was kind enough to write out about 20,000 words that I could ask Tom if I get a little stuck on the concepts, but I would love to take your questions out there from the troll box. So if you want to check my pinned tweet, it's Tuesday, which means my article came out today, and I'm again talking about fundamental value in the space. Stock market is crap. We're seeing housing, equities, other stuff look like crap. The BTC Strategic Reserve launched, and well, wouldn't you know, the price of, across all blockchain assets also looks like crap. So it's been a crappy time to be an investor in anything for the past couple of weeks and into a few months here. So if you're one of those people hoping to go to the moon, you just might have to work a little harder for it than buy thing, wait for thing, sell thing. But that's what we're here to talk about. If you read my article, I talk about some of the ways that we could be doing better by being more judicious, industrious, and the rest of it with your business. So everybody, we will cut to an ad here momentarily. I should also point out that the Otherworldly folks have been a sponsor of the show for a good while. So the question, comment, or whatever of the day will be receiving a free card pack from Otherworldly. And then we also have Rock Wallet, who has been so kind to sponsor the show. They offer a non-custodial Bitcoin wallet for you, as well as the ability to trade inside the app. You don't ever have to send off to some other exchange somewhere in the universe. So they help you do your trading easily as well, but also give you full custody of your assets on your device. So thank you, Rock Wallet, and thank you, Otherworldly, for sponsoring the show. Whew, I'm going to take a little breather here for about 30 seconds, and we'll be back with Tom Ross. Hey, Tom, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
What's up, man? Good to meet you, Kurt. Good to be here. Man, that's a rocking sound you got there, man. I never been on the show, so I didn't hear your intro before, but yeah,
I
I'm digging it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I'm a little bit higher energy on the air than I am off the air. So let's start by my audience likely largely does not know who you are. So looking at your bio, Brett's like, "Hey, talk to Tom," and I look you up, and I'm like, "Oh, this guy is like super legit here in the gaming space." So, uh, looking at your basically entire strategies of how to play any of these games at all are credited to you. The most masterful player of various ways to play things like Magic the Gathering. But if you can give me an intro, like what's your first of all, how did you get into any of this? Like, what was your first experience with games at all, and how did you end up becoming such a prolific player, and ultimately now coach and helping build out some of this stuff?
Yeah, who am I? What do I do here? But yeah, I go under the handle Boss MTG for Magic the Gathering. I've been playing the game, basically since its inception. Became a pro player at it, became a content creator at it. Won various tournaments, been at, across the world, 12 different foreign countries, whatever. Ended up being a content creator for Star City Games. Ended up working at Wizards of the Coast, making Magic for a year, making some other products as well. One called Spell Slingers, one called Transformers. I worked on the Transformer TCG for a little bit, and then I just kind of fell into this Champions game. Other Magic players recommended it to me, and I got attached to it. Started winning at it. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty good at it. They needed a little bit of work for this next upcoming set, and I was like, man, I could do that. So I ended up helping them out. Ended up basically lead designing the whole thing, and I'm really proud of it. I think it's going to be super sweet to take a lot of concepts from the previous sets in Champions, but also a lot of concepts from all card games, including Magic, and doing better on the things that they did better, and also like avoiding mistakes that I saw in the past of other card games.
For sure. I'm friends with a lot of collectors. It's actually one of the things that got me into Bitcoin initially is, I liked the resale. I liked antiques, things like, oh, here's a fancy watch and, that kind of thing. I always liked the kind of person that could show up at a rummage sale and spot the thing and be like, oh my God, they have no idea what they're trying to sell me here. So naturally I knew a handful of people that were super into rare Pokemon cards or Hearthstone. And then I remember the bickering about Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, and sort of it was the player versus the collector kind of antagonism became a big thing a number of years ago. What do you think? What do you think is the right balance when you see the people that are pushing cards, pushing games because they want to have a valuable secondary market, they want a lot of secondary trading and that kind of thing, like the monetary secondary market aspect of things versus the deep gamer culture that is creating value? Are those things fundamentally at odds with each other, or like has that cooled down? Have people figured out how to do that better, or what do you think is the status of that kind of cultural issues between those things?
No, I don't think it should be a war against of a collector versus a player. I think the collection should go hand in hand with how the players like perceive them and how good like the cards are. Some mistakes I saw in Magic were like they were making some bad rares, and I attended many meetings where like we're gonna stop making bad rares, even though there's a concept of you can't have a good card without the contrast of having a bad card.
Mhm.
You can make every card appealing to somebody. It could be niche. It could go only one deck, but at least give them like the chance to like open that rare and be like, okay, I can't use this, but somebody can. And a lot of the better cards, that'd be high value because you can use them in tournaments. You can play in those tournaments, you win money. You can, maybe get a plane ticket to France or something, and play in a bigger tournament. Things like that. It's just you can tie the collectability and the playability and go hand in hand. I mean, there will be odds to be like rare cards that competitive players don't want, but collectors do. Be a one of one card, and maybe it's a misprint or something that nobody really wants, but the collectors do because that's
Yeah.
their jam or whatever. But they definitely don't have to be at odds. And I think bringing that or closing that gap is important to a game designer. Like make sure that all cards are important, and make sure like none of your target market is left out, or even to the point of throwing a wider net and then encompassing more people to enjoy your game. as much as possible in as many ways as possible.
So you mentioned tournaments, as being one of the key things. Like, I've only ever been a casual gamer. I've never seen gaming as a thing other than like, hey, it's Friday night and maybe I'll hang out with my friends and do whatever. And card games is genuinely something that I do play with the neighbors and that kind of thing, but super casual. I'm, almost 40 years old and I am that like really lame guy in the neighborhood when it comes down to it. But to the people that make a life out of it, or folks like yourself that have turned this into something of a career, and in many ways, quite a fancy career. I've met some 16-year-old kids and stuff that are, serious sponsorships and these kind of things, playing everything from Magic the Gathering, or you get your like Call of Duty kids and that kind of thing that are like serious celebrities at this point. Uh, what do you think? How many people are out there playing these games see themselves as potentially on the path to go pro? Is that like a big part of the culture? Is it similar to your basketball kids? Where you get like two or three dads at every high school that are like, I'm going to get my kid into college and he's going to join the NBA, or like what if you were to put a percentage on it or something? How many people are playing these games and trying to go pro?
Trying to go pro, I think a decent percentage has aspirations, and by decent, I probably mean like 5 or 10% have aspirations. Where maybe a tenth of a percent actually can. Maybe that's similar to basketball, getting into like the G League or something. I'm not really sure. Or getting a scholarship to some fancy school, LSU or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, but do the aspirations meet the rewards? In Champions, for example, we're not trying to have a pro circuit. We do have a monthly like $1,000 tournaments, and we also had like invitationals in the past where I mean had many tens of thousands. It may have been like $10,000 purse for that
sure.
invitational. And there are paths in some like Magic the Gathering where you play in like a pro tour qualifier, or even a pre-pro tour qualifier for regionals. There's a clear path to become a pro, and hold that trophy and win like $40,000 or whatever. But Champions is more like a lower to the ground kind of pay to earn kind of game,
Yeah,
where you can like earn money hourly, you can earn money daily. We have a daily tournament. We have weekly tournaments, and then a monthly tournament as well. But it's a kind of game where you just play, you're grinding, you're building your collection, of course, but you're also like making some amount of dollars here in whatever currency is going in. I think we're doing BSV at the moment with hand cash, and also moving into MNEE as
yep,
a currency, of more of a stable coin. So a stable coin which should attract more of the crypto adverse audience, I
sure.
imagine, because they're not trying to speculate on if their money goes up or down. They just want to get their money in, buy some cards, and get out whenever they want to get out for approximately how much they got in for. So I think that's going to open up some avenues. But yeah, there are paths in other card games to aspire to be that professional player, and that's something we hope to do in otherworldly TCG too. But we're going to start one step at a time and just do the whole pay to earn thing before opening up
Sure.
tens of $1,000 tournament circuits.
Yeah. From a business standpoint and like, sales or marketing, how much is like the influencer culture, like you're something of an influencer in the space, but if a game doesn't have some celebrity, some gravitas around it, like, I remember when Champions or Otherworldly, at the time it was Champions of Otherworldly Magic is what this was called in alpha stage, and I remember hearing about it before it launched, and the guys involved were doing the hard work. Like they were literally just going to the local game shops and sort of explaining the business model and doing hard traditional sales, which I think is probably key for anything at the very beginning. But in the industry as a whole, are folks that are influential, like does this need to like go viral on Instagram, for example, to really become mainstream, or can these things spread through the like GameStop or your local game store at the mall and spread virally underground? Like how much of that is happening versus big marketing budgets and that kind of thing?
Well, it does need some amount of initial marketing to get some kind of critical mass of traction. But if the game's good enough, people will stream it and play it no matter what, and they'll tell their friends that the game's good no matter what. Like the indie game of the year last year was Balatro, and um, even the designer himself was like, "This isn't a very good game," but everybody loved it. Streamers, very popular streamers, just streamed it because they liked it, and they just kept telling people about it, and got a bunch of good ratings on Steam. And
Mhm.
everybody that liked it just told their friends, and just didn't market it at all. So a game can just start off and explode just by like how fun it is, like how
Sure.
everything just ties in together, how pleasing it is to play. And that is kind of the aim of my job as a game designer, to make the game just good and fun, and just have everybody have a good experience with it, and want to tell their friends, and want to get them to play, just to have somebody to play with, and just they just want to share that experience with other people.
Sure.
I mean, there's so much you can do with marketing, but if the game is not in there in the first place, then I mean, it's going to be all for naught. But marketing is important. You do need to get that initial boost. So I agree on both sides on this one.
Sure. So as a designer and as the lead designer on the latest stuff that's coming out over at Otherworldly, like what are some of the mistakes you mentioned? Trying to avoid the mistakes of the past from other games and learning lessons there. Uh, like if you were to nail down like two or three key things that like you really don't like that other games have done, like what are some examples of that, and what are you doing to try to make Otherworldly just that one step better?
I think it's not having filler cards, making every card just have a purpose, even if the purpose is small. Also introducing complexity at a very digestible rate, but also at a rate that keeps people engaged. Like games like Magic introduced two colors at a about 1 or 2 years into it. Other games introduced their blending of colors. In this case, we have elements instead of colors, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that um, within the next few sets. And yeah, just keeping it pace. I kept a lot of like nose to the ground, ear to the ground about what's it like to be a casual player. Like
Yeah,
attend local card shops. I want to keep that experience in mind and fresh, because as you climb the ladder of becoming a professional card player, you kind of forget like who your general audience is, and what
sure.
makes it fun for everybody, because the same amount of fun for them is not the fun for me. That the takeaways I get from playing card games, the reason I play card games.
Yeah,
And that is like my biggest thing I could give to advice for any aspiring designers specifically, is keep your audience like all in scope all at once, and pay a lot of attention to the mass audience of the players, the casual players, the people that may only play your game once, and you need to get that person to want to play the game a second time. You don't really need to cater as much to the people who've been playing for years and years. You won't keep them interested, and you want to keep player attention, but you want to you know keep the casual guy. The casual guy is a small guy, but he really is the biggest piece of the pie when it comes to games like these.
sure. No, that's it's an interesting issue. You see the same thing in lots of cultures, right? Or like race cars or whatever, like the kind of people that are like really into a thing, and it's like you get the experts who always want to police the culture, right? They're like, here's what you need to do, but then that could be alienating the actual bread and butter of the company and that kind of thing. So I think it's a uh really wise point to focus on. Hey man, acquiring new people, like letting this be fun for everybody, is also really important here. um Looking at, so one of the new things that is coming out in the 2025 sets is this heroes mechanic. Can you get into like how does that work? How does that play into the game? Like what will be new in the game with this concept being introduced?
Yeah, so heroes have been around about 6 months, I believe now.
Mm.
So even anybody can play with any cards they want. Um, there is champions, and they're heroes that you can play, and you can play any of the cards you have in your entire collection. With heroes, you're more narrowing down what you're trying to do. Either it be you're playing a bunch of cards with a certain keyword, like you play nature champions with life bloom on them, and you have a bunch of them in your collection, and you just like the way that plays out. So you can play a nature champion. In our case, it'd be Luna Everglow. But the cost of doing that would be you're restricted on the cards you can play. You can only play nature cards and our blanket of normal cards, which kind of fit in most decks. So you can kind of pick and choose your either your strategy based on what you have in your collection, or just kind of the play style you favor. Or if you think like this play style is good in like the meta game right now, you might build a deck for that. But there are options to play any cards you want, but the heroes are mainly there for people that want to explore their own play style and try like a different avenue of how to play the game. Because all the heroes have like a passive ability kind of changes the game how they play, and an active ability that like helps them out in different ways. So it's more of a diversity thing, but also like letting people kind of identify with how they want to play the game, but also giving the competitive players like, okay, I can play the game differently in this way and having an edge over the rest of the competition.
Nice. No, that's cool. So to the previous question about keeping it real for your casual fans, we got Eric asking us, can you walk us through the basics of the game? Eric hasn't played in years, but he's excited again. Maybe if you could give us the 100 level version of Otherworldly here.
Yeah, so it's a digital card game. Each player comes with their own deck. In this case, it's 35 cards, so you can pick any of the 35 cards you have. If you're playing, a 5-color or an all-element deck, a 7-element deck. You can play up to 2 cards, so of each card in your deck. So of that 35, you'll have 17 plus another one. So you can play up to like 18, at minimum 18 unique cards. So the way the game works is you draw an opening hand, and each turn you get a mana, and then each turn after that you get another mana. So when the game starts out, you can play cards that are cheap, cards that are 1, cards that are 2. Later in the game, you play more expensive things, cards that are like 8 and 9 and 8, 7, 8, and 9 or whatever. But also, as long as the game goes on and you get more mana, you get more turns or opportunities to play more cards. So like on turn 7, you play like something that costs 3, costs 4, whatever. I don't care about the mana system that much. How do you win the game? How do the champions interact? So in this game, all the cards are creatures. They're all champions. There's no spells, no artifacts, no enchantments, whatever. They're all creatures. They're all champions, and they all attack, and they all help defend you. And they all have effects when they enter, and they all have effects when they leave. Not all of them, but that's how the game works. And the game's all played on your turn. So you do your thing. That's really powerful. You probably end your turn with a overwhelmingly good board state, and then they take their turn and they kind of decimate your board, and then they're winning. So it's kind of like a tennis match in that regard. You hit your serve as hard as you can, then they hit the ball back as hard as they can. As soon as somebody makes a mistake, then the game might be over. And the games last probably about 5 minutes at lowest, maybe even lower than that, and then probably about half an hour at highest. So you can get to a game, look for like about an 8-minute game, I'll probably guess on average. After that, you can just queue right into a new game if that's what you want, or go into the deck builder and change a couple of cards that didn't work out, a couple of cards you saw from an opponent, and be like, oh, cool, that was all right. Maybe go on the market, buy it for like a couple cents or whatever it costs, and just try it again. Then like the hero you played, you can play another one. There are a bunch of free heroes in the game. There are 15 or 16 of them. They're just completely free. They allow you to have bonuses depending on your element pair, and you roll with that for a while, or you can keep playing, open some packs, and find heroes that are cards. The 15 free heroes aren't cards, but a lot of the cards in the game are heroes as well. You can play them in any deck, but also if you want to make them your hero, you just play one copy in your deck, and you get the benefits of what that hero does.
Sure.
And yeah, I guess that's pretty gist of it. I'm sure I missed probably 100 things, but
For
I
sure.
hope that gets you started.
Yeah. So you're not really a blockchain guy. One of the things we talked about off air is, it's not really your realm, and that's cool. So what's it like working in a startup that is fundamentally a blockchain based game versus any other experience that you have? And then if you give any feedback, Hand Cash has become a big partner really to Otherworldly. So I'm curious, first of all, what is your experience with generic, like, okay, this is a blockchain game? Has that changed your view or the way that you work at all in the game? And then Hand Cash specifically, I'd be curious to hear, what was it like using Hand Cash the first time and that kind of thing?
To me, it's not been any different, but crypto in general is kind of scary for the card game audience right now. I
Yeah.
don't really know why, but it's kind of intimidating. They don't know where their money's going. A lot of people just aren't educated on it.
Yeah.
But as far as the experience when you get into it, I mean, it's not any different than any other card game. It's just, I mean, the market is kind of the same. You do have to have a wallet, but that's all already been integrated in the other worldly games, so it was pretty simple in that regard. If you want to delve into other crypto stuff, which I didn't do, and to kind of connect wallets here or there and match, I don't know all about that, but
Sure.
from my usage of it, it's been pretty simple. The hand cash has been very helpful. It's been very simple to use. The transactions with BSV has been fast, and I heard the other crypto is kind of slow.
Yeah.
They able to take small transactions, and in a game like this, you do need to have like your commons moving back and forth pretty fast, and for pennies at a time. So that's an important thing to have. If you're going to do blockchain stuff, to have the transactions fast and easy to use. So I mean, for me, a guy that's not really crypto minded and really inexperienced coming into it, it's been not quite a seamless experience, but it's been as smooth as really you can hope for.
Cool. So it's funny when you think about all of what goes into it, like the blockchain part of it actually should be pretty simple and make it go away. So I'm excited to hear that it was not like we had to we had to deal with all this nonsense. But there's probably a lot of other stuff going into you know rules or even just something like the art is got to be somebody's full-time job, like working on making sure the art is cohesive and
Right.
the naming schemas and just making sure that things all kind of make sense. Seems like an organizational nightmare to me. Is that as a lead designer on on one of these things, is that your job to sort of build that top down hierarchy of all of those things, or like how many people actually does it take to organize and deploy a whole new set and the decks and all of that stuff?
Probably it takes at least two, but in our case, we had a larger team, maybe up to 8 people had their hands in working on the set. It does take somebody to wrap their head around the totality of what's going on here,
Yeah.
both for like just like at all levels, like how it's going to affect the collectors, how it's going to affect our ranked standard games, how's draft going to work, or limited formats. And yeah, trying to keep a simple naming convention and trying to create a world that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, you kind of can put a motley crew of cards together, and I mean, if the game's fine and is fun enough, then it's okay. People will overlook it, but there's always that aesthetic pleasing of the cards actually making sense or being some amount of lore to it.
Yeah.
A card, if a card has the ability to steal, it shows it like stealing something at least.
Sure.
Just just yeah, just smoothing it all out. The smoothing it all out is something that is difficult, especially when you have the heroes in mind as well, because instead of just making a set full of cards, you're making sets for all these maybe like 40 different heroes that all the cards can go into, and
Yeah.
how all they're gonna affect the games and how their kits are gonna be. The heroes are kind of like, if you play hero shooters like Overwatch or Marvel Rivals, they're kind of like loadouts for what you're trying to do, and they can all be different, and they all have to like not be overpowered and not be so weak they're just unpleasant or undesirable to play.
Sure.
Uh, it takes at least 2 people. I mean, if you're a genius and have a year of time on your own, you probably do it by yourself. But if you have like a group of 8 people, you can crank it out within a few months, which is probably about the timeline where people are expecting new sets, and about the time where the content from old sets is gonna kind of drying out. And
Yeah.
I think it's about the timeline we intend on pumping out new sets about every few months.
Okay. What's your take on, so I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 86. So for me, like the late 80s and up into the mid 90s stuff was always the thing that stood out to me. So I was a little bit into the Pokemon stuff as I made my way through like middle school and that kind of thing. And just generally collectability. Like for me, it was Ninja Turtles and that kind of stuff was like the hot commodity when I was growing up. But when you look at the way that companies came into these things, like they might create a piece of content for the sake of some vision, But then they realize, okay, we're not going to make any money unless we merchandise this stuff. And then all of a sudden, like the toys are making all the money, and then the content only serves to sell the toys. I think this is the case for like Star Wars and a bunch of other things where they realize like, okay, the movie's going to do fine. Like we'll make money on the movies, but where we're actually going to make money forever is that, everybody's going to want the new R2D2 collectible whatever, or just the throwaway toys that you would pick up for $10 at the time Toys R Us or whatever. How much of that kind of thing goes into, like, do you guys plan for that kind of thing at all, or is it just sort of like, oh shoot, we created a character that everybody's in love with, and like you caught fire by accident, or is there somebody trying to plan like, let's make this thing really meme worthy, or something to like pick up that cultural zeitgeist?
I mean, we love to do that. Taking it one step at a time right now. I don't know if there'd be otherworldly T-shirts and figurines of the characters in this, or
Yeah.
or the otherworldly TCG movie in the works. We haven't quite storyboarded that out yet, but we're trying to grassroots it one step at a time here. But well, yeah, we'd love to expand on more things, more marketing, merchandise, everything out. We're doing like small aesthetic things right now that you do have in a card game. Doing, the emotes and the card backs and the game boards and the avatars and
Yeah.
everything that if they really like what's going on here, they can expand. Spend money for things that aren't uh, things that will help them win tournaments, particularly. Um, our stakes are collectibles. You can buy them and sell them if you buy a card back you like and decide you don't like it, you can put it on market and sell it to somebody who does want it, and you tried a new card back. So it's something like buying a Ninja Turtle figurine, being like, oh, I didn't really like Raphael. Let me sell it to somebody and get Michelangelo, which may not be the case for all kind of
Yeah.
collectibles, merchandise type stuff, but we do have that ability to expand on if they are getting attached to characters, getting attached to elements, or getting attached to whatever part of champions that they are liking to open up their wallet, spend a little money, and then have the added benefit of if they don't like the stuff, then you can put it on market and sell it to somebody else.
Sure. So to that point, can you explain drafting for people that don't understand, like why, like what is the process, and why would you try to draft your way into a certain looking deck versus another?
Okay. So there's basically two formats. There's standard, which you can build your own deck, bring your own deck, your cards versus their cards. And then there's limited, when in our case is going to be drafting. So you play with a limited number of cards. So the way drafting works, if you heard of like fantasy drafting or football or baseball, you open up a pack of cards. In our case, it's 10 cards. You take one and you pass it. Then you get past a pack of 9 cards. And you take one, and that process happens throughout the card pack. So you'll be ended up with 10 cards. Say you're with a group of people, about 8 people, and then you do it again with another pack. And you do this, pass the opposite direction, take one card, you pass the pack of 9, do it over and over. So you have 10 cards there, so you have 20. You do that total of 4 times, so you have 40 cards, and then you build a 30 card deck out of those 40 cards. And everybody has the opportunity to see most of the cards and have to decide, is this card worthy of my deck? Do I have like the synergies to make this card work? Because you can get past really powerful cards, but you get past them because everybody else at the table can't really use them, but your deck can. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So you're trying to make like a very cohesive deck, but also try to pick the most powerful cards. And it's kind of a contest of like, is my card evaluation better than my opponent's? Is my card synergy evaluation? Like, am I picking some strategy that they are not thinking of? And then, of course, after it's all said and done, you have your decks, and you go to play on the battlefield, and your skills as a card game player come into play. And sometimes the best deck wins, sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of a two-part thing: your drafting ability and your playing ability. But the core set 25 is super draft friendly. It's
Yeah.
made with drafting completely in mind. As part of Wizards of the Coast, I worked making the draft sets for um, probably about 4 or 5 of their mainstream sets, and to have keep iterating over and over, keep getting those 8 people together, cracking packs, passing them around. And my advice that the primary way to build a collection and get into the game is by drafting, because you do keep the cards you open, and you do learn all the card interactions just by reading the cards and trying to create synergies, getting those wheels turning, and then playing other people. at a very like low cost kind of a way to get into the game. So you're building your collection, you're honing your skills, and you're having a lot of fun before you have to like dip your toes into super competitive, build your own deck, best deck in the game, tooth and nail kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love drafting. I think it's one of the best ways to play like any card game. Not like Otherworldly is
Sure.
completely included in that too.
Well, and it's social. I mean, it's when people are playing things like fantasy football, it's like yes, you care about the sport, you care about the game, you want to win the pot at the end, but ultimately you're hanging out with your friends, and
Yeah.
like that's a big part of the thing is hey, we're like have a reason to get together and shoot the shit a little bit. So that's
Mhm.
also key. Um, how much when you're being strategic about your drafting and that kind of thing, how competitive how competitive is that kind of thing? I've not participated in that, like this is way outside of my skill set on this kind of thing, but are you guys is it like poker face kind of thing? Like yes, you're playing with your friends, but ultimately you're like every move is a move to attempt to win the game too? Or how much is there strategy about like your position in the rotation or that kind of thing? Like what are some competitive strategies that uh might not be immediately obvious to the casual player?
Well, when drafting, it doesn't feel competitive. It feels like you're just trying to do your best. You're trying to build the best machine you can, and you're just kind of taking pieces and parts, and just it feels like you're just kind of doing your own thing while you're doing the drafting process. And the end of it all is like, did I build a better monster than you did? It's more. It's weird to say it doesn't feel competitive, but it's more like
Yeah.
gratifying to know that I built something that's more powerful than you built. Not necessarily I'm trying to beat you. It's like more of like a pride thing.
Mhm.
Maybe they're the same thing. Maybe I'm just confused. But
Well, so it's funny. Like one of the things about you that I've picked up is, your reputation is this like powerful competitor, but you seem like as a person seem very, very metered, very cool. Like you seem like, frankly, the kind of guy that I'd be very scared to compete against because you seem very calm. And so, are you fundamentally a competitive person, or how did you get into playing competitively in the first place?
well, I learned very early on that winning is a byproduct of good play, and all that matters is making the right decisions. Either you make the correct decision or you make a mistake, and that's kind of the mindset I've had throughout my competitive career. It doesn't matter if you win or lose, if you play the game well. And yeah, it's an old adage, of course, but
Sure.
actually taking that and not getting tilted, not like pumping yourself up trying to win.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to win on the court, you're making a mistake. You should be trying to win in the gym. You should be practicing your free throws and working out and lifting weights and hitting the treadmill, all that stuff. What would they say? 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, my mindset is when you get to play something competitively, especially if you're not used to like being on the big stage under the lights. If you're trying to win something, you're probably going to be on camera. You're probably going to have a
Yeah.
crowd watching you. So you have to be like cool and collected. And like, if you want to get excited about stuff, be excited about like you broke the format, working in a playtesting house with some friends or something. That's the
Yeah.
time to get excited. Or after tournament's over, that's time to get excited. Or time to be worried is before the you actually get into stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever gone into a tournament with a fresh strategy like that you have developed that nobody else has heard? And you're famous for a couple of strategies that you've really made your own. But have you ever been in a situation where you've got like a killer sauce that you're bringing in and people are going to see for the first time? Or like how much of that are you bringing into a specific tournament?
Yeah, that is very important. That's something that I like to do. I like to bring very unique decks, some that people haven't seen before. Not to just be impressive and be creative, is that you get a real advantage playing with cards that people are not familiar interacting with, or
Yeah.
bringing a strategy they're not used to, putting a defense against. So that kind of surprise factor is really huge in card games. And even if your deck is untuned, maybe because you're playing something, you had to keep it under the radar. You may not get some reps with it against other competitive people, but even just playing that surprise factor deck can make people make mistakes. They can assume things that aren't true. They just run into whatever strategy you're trying to go for because they just unfamiliar with it. So I think it's a huge part, and to keep the metagame kind of on its toes by playing extreme strategies
Sure.
is I mean, it's awesome. It's something that I like to see in every card game. It really keeps things fresh and interesting, not seeing the stale best decks win over and over. Just have
Yeah.
something that catches people's eye and takes them off guard.
No, that's really cool. So one of the ways so I'm an athlete. I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach and competitor myself. So for me, there's a lot of the same kind of thing. Like sometimes I'll go into a tournament and for whatever reason, my adrenaline's just high. Like I don't even know why. And I'm like, man, I'm going to have a bad tournament because for some reason I can't get my own emotions in check. And then other times I go in and I'm like cold as ice and I'm like, man, I don't care who they put against me. I'm gonna play well. I don't know if I'm gonna win the whole damn thing, but nobody's gonna break me because of my own nonsense, right? But I think it's really key for people if you really want to get good at something to get good at competing at that thing. And champions or otherworldly now, I'm gonna keep screwing that up. But the otherworldly team started putting on like daily tournaments 2 years ago or something, and they happen basically every single day. And I think that's a really interesting way to build the culture, but also build quality players. How much do you think, if somebody wanted to get really good at the thing, should they be competing really, really consistently, or how much should be casual play or play for the sake of practice versus playing in live tournament? Or in your mind, is it kind of the same thing? Or and then to that, like what is the step up for like prizes that you intend to win? Like if there's a big thing coming up, how much should they be doing small tournaments versus sort of practice play?
Well, the difference between like otherworldly and Magic is because is otherworldly tournaments are all free. You
Yep.
don't there's no entry fee to any tournaments except for every every week you have like a brawl event which costs $1 to play in,
Sure.
but you can play any of the daily tournaments just for free. Some you do have to have your own cards. A lot you don't. About half of them you don't have to have your own cards at all. They're just free. Either you play with it's free mode. You can play with any of the cards, or it's some kind of limited format. Like in our case, it's Blitz, where you play like two elements, and each player has the exact same deck, and they're randomized. So you play a whole tournament, and everybody has the same randomized deck, and they're a little bit focused, but random within a scope, and just whoever just plays better wins. And maybe a 16-person tournament, maybe 32, but there's always prizes at the end. You could enter these and play with no collection at all, no experience in the game at all, and end up with some prizes. Maybe you get a few bucks. You can build like find some commons, some rares, maybe even mythic or two with your winnings. You can play this, go on to play the standard rank ladder and get like an hourly reward. You just play like 2 matches an hour, and you get like some portion of $2 just every hour, and you get some portion of $10 every day. And the cards are pretty cheap on there. I mean,
Yeah.
the expensive cards are expensive because they're rare, but they're totally not necessary to win. You can win with all commons in the game. In fact, there are tournaments where you just play all commons called Pauper. So it's very like new player friendly. It's friendly for people that want to build the best deck in the world ever with all the top tier diamond cards, but it also is very accessible to anybody that just wants to play with some commons and
Mhm.
or even with the starter decks. There are two starter decks in the game too. The people just play off the rip in ranked and just be pretty competitive. I designed them myself. There's two of them that are representing a lot of new stuff that comes in the core set 25. And last season, the star decks were actually really good. They top aided multiple tournaments that we had. Maybe a lot of them were just bare bones stock starter decks, and some of them like they changed 5 cards or whatever. But that's something that can be a starting point. You can just play the starter deck and earn $10 worth of cards and buy those cards and put them in your deck and like start top aiding stuff. But there is room for people want to buy the high end $100 cards that are collectible, but give you like a 0.5% edge. There's people that won't do that, and there is available cards for in the market for people that want to buy those cards.
Sure. No, it's cool. So given your history in this industry, do you have other friends, colleagues, maybe even enemies that you are bringing in, being like, hey guys, check this thing out. I'm always curious when I'm playing with anything where players tend to be pseudonymous or anonymous. I could be playing a video game against some legend. Like you do hear some, these people on Twitch or whatever, and it's like oh my god, I was playing this game and everybody was joking this guy was Shaquille O'Neal, and it turned out it was actually Shaquille O'Neal I was playing with, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But when it comes to like professional players, do you have professional player friends that you've brought into the game? And I'd be curious to hear their feedback if you've brought in any other serious players.
Knowing our invitational that we had a bunch of Magic players that I'm familiar with, probably even play tested with them many times, like play at like Magic houses before Pro Tours. I think Andreas Strosky is one of them. Jody Keith is a good friend of mine. He was very good at the game. He actually got me into it. I think Martin Juza was in it, and a few others. Jacob Wilson is big in this game. They're all at very minimum like top 80 Pro Tours and
Sure.
have much wider careers than that. But yeah, I mean, this game is appealing to Magic players because they love just the competitive scene. The game does have good outlets for competition, and it's very familiar to. It's familiar enough, but also different enough to get their attention. It's very much like card games they played before, so they can transfer their skills over to this game, while also being engaging enough to be like, no, this ain't stale anymore. It's just something. It's a brand new experience, but it's something I'm good at. Let's try it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it should.
Nice. So to that point, you're the lead designer on this new set. When you're developing something and you need to keep it fresh, like you need to do something for the people that have been playing this game for 2 years. I'm sure there's a pile of people that literally are playing every day, and you don't want to lose them, but you also don't want the game to get too off topic, basically, to where all of a sudden you've created something bizarre, undiscoverable or whatever. But what things did you add to your set that you're designing here? Like, what are you most proud of? And was there anything that maybe you left on the cutting room floor for that reason, to be like, what, this is a cool idea, but maybe it's too many things at once? Like, I'd be curious to hear about all that.
So first thing, as a game designer, you want to make it easy for other people that you're working with. So in my case, I kind of wanted to make a whole set of like weird inanimate creatures running around, but that was just too hard for the
Yeah.
art department to do. I kind of want to make all these cool fancy abilities, turn what rules they previously thought in their head, but that makes a lot of work on the programmer.
Yeah.
So in my case, I try to leave nothing on the floor as far as the resources I had available. So in this set, previously we had like smaller creatures. They're only 9/9s. Now we're getting bigger than that. We're bigger, going to like 10/10s and 15/15s and stuff. We are combining abilities in ways we haven't seen before. So, things that gained you some life, but also had like rush or haste or something. Now they're paired together. But previously you only saw one or the other.
Mm.
So instead of like making new things, I kind of combined the what we had existingly to make fresh fresh concepts, fresh cards, fresh game experiences. It's like a chef in the kitchen, combining ingredients that they have and make a fantastic new dish without having to go to the grocery store.
Sure.
But I did have to call in a few things and make a few exceptions. Hey, programmer, I kind of need this. This is super important. Let's get this through. And he's like, yeah, you're not busting me too bad. So let's get this through. But I do want to make it easier on everybody else too, just by using the tools I have available as best as possible without having to like stress anybody else out. And that goes like back and forth between the art and programming and the design. Just they all have to work well together and make sure that everybody else gets their job done and make it easy on everybody else.
That's funny. No, that makes a lot of sense. We got Joey, who won last week's free deck for the game. Wondering, I want to know what is the card to hope you pull from the core set. Like, do you have some master goat killer card here that everybody would want?
Well, I do have a card named after me that I designed. It's called Tom Ross. It
Nice.
is a huge champion. It's bigger than most. It's a 12/12 for 8 mana, and has good abilities. Has good abilities when it enters. It can pretty much remove any other champion from the game and draws you one or two cards.
Yeah.
But it costs a lot. It can fit in every deck, but doesn't have to. It's pretty rare, but not the rarest card. And it also is our buy a case promo. So if you buy 6 boxes at a time, you get the card for free and a specific emote that I might even not even have myself. I have to work to get that in my own card
That's
and
funny.
my own emote here. But yeah, but it's totally not necessary to have and to play with and to attain. But it is awesome, but it's not necessary to win with. There's
Yeah.
tons of strategies you can play without playing the best cards, the most expensive cards. But I am looking forward to getting this card and playing with it and hopefully owning people with it.
Nice. Oh, that's a lot of fun. So what's next on the roadmap? You guys are iterating, you're doing really cool stuff. Is there a big step up over the next, 18 months or something? And what do you envision for yourself? Like, do you want to see like, hey, I really want the next one to be, exponential, or, like where do you see the company going? I always ask, my favorite way to ask a question is, if you had a magic wand and $1 billion, what does this all look like in a year? So what is that?
Maybe a question for the other guy, but for me, it is just keep it flowing. Don't drop the ball. Keep the game interesting. Keep the content flowing. Keep everything fresh. Keep the sets coming out in a timely manner. I know there's plans to integrate with like brick and mortar card shops, getting in the shops, being a paper version of it, or ways to buy in the shop and getting like digital vouchers to
Sure.
to get introduced to the game, things like that. I know they're in the works for that. Um, I do have an idea for the next probably 3 sets of the direction the game is going,
Nice.
and we'll be kind of combining concepts, expanding more, and probably going to the dual element realm, which is about the time that games like Magic and Eternal kind of start blending together. Once like a color pie has kind of been established, that the identity of all the elements, that is the next logical step, while also having kind of focused sets, like maybe a different environment, different world, different like fight going on, different reasons for conflict,
Mhm.
things like that. Um, just reasons to introduce new heroes, expanding on the lore. You're talking about like Ninja Turtle collectibles. Maybe we'll make lore books, or
Yeah.
some things we can send to people. Maybe in an otherworldly mouse pad or something at the very least.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
But I see the future for Champions being very bright, especially with the integration with hand cash and how seamless the BSV transfers have been with a digital card game, which is something I never experienced before, but I'm currently having good experiences with. And I mean, they have a whole team working on it. Everybody just working on new features, new features. I'm just over here, working on the sets, using my expertise to just make the card game experience fun, and just kind of letting the crypto guys and letting the programmers do their own thing, and letting the managers do their own thing.
Sure.
Shout out to Miles and Brett for getting me on and for running a tight ship down in our otherworldly Discord. But yeah, I'm out here doing my part. Want to keep this ship afloat, so I am
Awesome.
making the game fun for myself and for competitive Magic players and for just the casual players as well, and maybe guys like you, Kurt, that
Yeah.
don't have a ton of card game experience, but you could just come in and pick up the game and have a good time for a little while, even if it's
Yep.
it has to be a group of friends. Maybe the 8 people will get a draft together, or maybe just log in with the starter deck and play a few games of ranked. Just have a good time.
Yep.
Should be
No,
for everybody.
that's been the thing. I don't have time to dedicate 2 hours to playing a game, but for me, like, I have hopped on to play. I'm like, oh wow, game looks a lot better than it was last time, and I'll find myself, I'll play 3-4 games in a row or whatever, and then I don't play for 3 months. But every time I jump in, I'm like, man, this is pretty great. So it's impressive, and I think it's really cool what you guys are doing. We got about 4 minutes left. Any like closing thoughts? Anything you wish I would have asked you, or shout outs to grandma, or how do you like to close these things?
Shout out to grandma. I could shout out my mom. It's her birthday coming up.
There
I
you
doubt
go.
she'll watch this, but shout out mom.
Love it.
Uh, I mean, questions you could ask? We take some questions from the audience if they have any.
Yeah, I don't know that anything was, I grabbed a couple as they were coming through. Mr. Producer, if there's anything you want to pop up on the screen. Actually, mostly they're talking to each other. They're kind of just using this as an opportunity to chit chat, which
Okay.
is
I guess it was a
fine by
perfect
me.
stream here. We covered everything anybody wanted to ask, so
Love it.
did our job.
Yes, sir. Well, Tom, real pleasure. If you ever come out to South Florida, Fort Lauderdale area, vacation or whatever, hit me up. I'd be happy to show you around and do any of that. We do have people out from the BSV community sort of regularly, a couple times a year, and so feel, from me, like personally welcome to come hang out and meet some more blockchain people.
Yeah, I've been there since I was about 1 year old. I was born in Cape Canaveral. I think that's somewhere around there.
Yeah, well, time to come back.
Been a while, a long time coming. Yep.
Yes, sir. All right, Tom, thank you. We will catch up again soon. I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Thanks for having me.
All right. So there we go, everybody. That was Tom Ross, boss, Mr. Boss Magic the Gathering, boss _ MTG across social media. He's been basically, made himself an icon in the space, and really cool to see him, rocking here on the show. Here we go, Joey. You should have asked 2 minutes earlier, but when Coom meetup, actually that'd be a fun thing. Put together some meetup stuff and go that direction, because for me it really is about the social. When it comes to anything that isn't jujitsu, I'm not particularly competitive. So, but I do like to go to these things and I don't know, just kind of be a troll and hang out with my friends. But so we'll take a couple questions here if needed. We got. Oh yeah, actually, we got to do the comment of the day. We got to bang through a couple of things. So, Mr. Producer, if you could snag, there was one that got a few laughs, but I think he won the cards last week. So maybe we want to pick somebody else. So, let's take a moment. I just wanted to answer this question real quick about the Terranode group and Terranode stuff. So Terranode, the technology is iterative. Frankly, people keep asking me like, when's it going to be live? When's it going to be live? I think the real question is when's it going to be open source? Like, when can anybody download it and play with it? And that I'm not entirely sure of. I know they want to get it out as soon as possible. I can tell you that from our position, the iterative updates of Terranode, we're downloading them, we're running them at Gorilla Pool. I think they're great. I'm a very cavalier person when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like, I would be releasing it to go as is, but this kind of stuff really does need experts doing the hard penetration testing and all the cybersecurity stuff to make sure you don't put out a piece of junk that some hacker is going to rip down. So the Terranode stuff, in my opinion, is going exceptionally well. And we're using it. It is live on the network now, and basically that'll be in parallel with the BSV node version until Volume knocks it off. So yeah, that's my take on that. As for Terranode Group, there's been whispers about. I'm not even exactly sure what Terranode Group is, but some consolidation of brands in the BSV space or something. But that's way outside of my pay grade and my wheelhouse, and ain't nobody giving me whispers about what they're doing with all that stuff. So best I can do is say, oh. Anyways, let's cut to an ad real quick as we decide who the comment of the day is, and we'll be back in about 20 seconds. Do it.
Choose your hero. Eldrick Soyhammer, Divine Crusader.
The time is now, champion. To war!
Jesus the Risen.
Blessed be the cheddar.
Boris, Protector of Innocence.
I'm all natural.
Solren, Scythe of the Damned.
Your soul is mine. No refunds.
Lilith, Princess of Hell.
Self-destruction is an art.
Wagyu, Tasty Samurai.
High-grade beef with a killer instinct.
Skibbity, Brain Rot Incarnate.
insane ad. Let's cut to comment of the day. Mr. Producer, you pick. Go. Who are we giving it to? Where's it going? Keeping me in suspense. I'm my vote is Eric Belinsky. He was asking the most questions. I think you could give it to any one of them. There we go. All right, Eric, reach out on X to Real CoinGeek. Brett or somebody from the other Worldly team will reach out to you, send you your free deck. You do need a hand cash wallet set up in order to receive. So congratulations, Mr. Belinsky, and thank you for watching. Everybody, all right, we're 2 minutes over the top of the hour. And I hear my kids just came home, so I'm going to go before they attack me live on the air. Everybody, I'm Kurt Wicker Jr. This has been the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. It is a pleasure spending my hour with you every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert bell. Let our digital overlords know that you want to consume my content endlessly, and then we will see you next week. Do not forget to be good to each other. If we can't even be good to each other, what's the point of any of this nonsense, huh? So, all right, everybody, see you next week. Kurt Wicker Jr. out. Goodbye.